So I went through the interview process, like killed it. I didn't know technical interviews were like a thing. So I had to like learn everything from scratch. So I'm like, what's leak code? Like, how do you
Yeah.
do this? Like, how do you do that? So taught myself that whole thing. So I did my first internship in the Bay, but
Dope.
I interned every semester after that, I think, except for like one semester. So I did 10 internships total by the time that I graduated.
Oh my
So
goodness.
yeah, I was making, I think, like $56 an hour or something crazy. They put me in like a really nice apartment. Like you could see the wharf from like my window. Like Lombard Street was around the corner. And yeah, I was working retail before that. So I was working at a car dealership. I had two jobs. I was working at a car dealership and I was working at Publix to pay through school. I think I came home with like $10,000 that summer, like saved. Like I paid off a whole bunch of stuff, came home, bought a new car, still had money left over. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going back to Publix.
Welcome back to another episode of Day in My Tech Life. My name is Simone B, also known as Bees, and today we have a special guest. This is Dania Luke. She is a product manager and CEO founder of a marketing company. She's super talented. She does so many different things, and she's flexing on people on Twitter in the gym. So she does everything. So welcome on to the series.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here. So it's going to be a great conversation.
Yeah, you said you want to talk about a lot of stuff. So this is going to be a good one. So first, I just want to start out with like, how did you get into tech and what's your background like growing up? Where are you from?
Yeah, so both my parents, because this is relevant, both my parents are from Haiti. So I knew that I was going to get a STEM degree because I didn't have any other options. So it's like go to school to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. But how I got into tech is like a funny but very short story. I literally Googled 4-year degrees that make the most amount of money. And like computer science came up and a couple of different types of engineering. I just knew I didn't want to go to med school because I was like, I'm just not trying to be in school for that long. So I was like, we're going to pick something and we're going to stick to it and we're going to figure it out. So yeah, I enrolled in school like a week later to get my engineering degree at KSU. And that was kind of the start of me getting into tech. And I've been an engineer in the tech space ever since. So,
Dope. So you went to KSU. What's that? What's it stand for again?
so I went to Kennesaw State University.
Okay.
My major is in computer science and I have a double minor. So statistics and data analytics and then gender and women's studies. I thought I wanted to be a data scientist. And I actually hate math. So I was like, I don't know why I did that. So I just pivoted more towards just doing like general, more like full stack, like dev work. Data was not for me.
Not for you. Yeah, a lot of people say they want to get into data. I'm like, are you sure? Like all that math?
No, and like
Yeah.
like doing like like coding math and like creating charts and like, it's just so different. I mean, like my professor, this teacher, Dr. Susan Hardy, she's fantastic, really smart, really good at what she did. So like learning that has been really helpful, but just not something that I wanted to do long term.
Dope. So that's how you got in. But so have you always lived in this area?
In Atlanta, no.
Yeah.
I'm originally from Florida, so I lived the first 20 years of my life in Tampa. I just moved up here to go to school. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, I kind of moved to Atlanta on a whim. I came to visit. I had some friends that lived up here. I was still figuring out where I wanted to go to college, and they were like, "Come to Atlanta, like you would love it." And so I think I went to Atlanta like Monday through like a Wednesday or something like that. And I came home and I told my mom, I was like, I'm moving to Atlanta next Monday. And she was like, no, you're not. She was like, you don't have a job. Like I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't have a car. I had like, so I had like 4 days.
How old were you?
I was 19. So I literally went, I put in my transfer paperwork for my job. I went and bought a car. Like I went and like learned how to drive and bought a car in like 2 days. And then I came home like Saturday with a car and my family was like, what's going on?
Right.
And I packed my car up and the first drive that I ever did as like a licensed driver was taking my car from Tampa to Atlanta, and I've lived here ever since.
Hey, look, but Atlanta has that type of effect on people.
Yeah, I loved it. And I was just like, I felt like all the people that I met here were like really young and like entrepreneurial. And I just wanted something different. Like Tampa's nice, but I feel like when you live in a place where like people vacation, it's like it's a slightly different vibe. So I was like, I want to be someplace where I feel like I'm gonna get some work done. And Atlanta's been very good to me, so I don't regret it at all.
Hey, look, that's dope. That's not how I got here, but no, I saw everything that was happening in Atlanta. Like Tara was talking about it, like, hey, this is a booming spot. I came here, I saw everything happening.
Oh yeah, because you haven't been here for that long.
No, I've only been here since what was it, end of 2021 when I got back from Taiwan.
Yeah.
So like I came here, was looking at houses, ended up driving past the condo building, and I thought it was an apartment complex. So like I went inside, I was like, oh, these are for sale. So the guy, he like showed me around. And then I saw my unit, and I was like, yeah, I gotta have this, right? So I bought it. I bought the unit, and I didn't see it again until after I got back from Taiwan. So
that's so funny.
Yeah, so I bought it before like even getting back from overseas. I was like, yeah, I'm moving to Atlanta. Don't know what I'm about to do when I get back, but I'm definitely moving to Atlanta.
I love that. Yeah, I feel like people come here and they're like, I'm gonna live here now.
Yeah, no, it's definitely so much opportunity here, and I know this is like off the tangent and stuff, but I was talking about that like a couple of days ago on Twitter. Is that with Atlanta, there's just so much Black excellence. Like
there is in every industry.
Every industry.
You don't get that in a lot of places.
No.
I think too. One thing I've also really appreciated since being here is like it's a lot of like diverse Blackness. Like nobody's the same. You see so many different styles, ethnicities, like. Everything that people do is just so different from person to person and space to space, and like I love that.
Yeah, no, me too. That's why I love it here. I'm like, the people were saying, oh no, DMV is the best. I'm like, I think DMV and Atlanta's like neck and neck.
Yeah,
like,
it's a little cold up there. So y'all, you lost me on that one.
Yeah, no, definitely. So okay, so you decided to get a computer science degree, and did you get any internships while you were in school?
I did. So for anybody who doesn't follow me on social media, I've been on socials for like a while. So I've been like tweeting since I was in high school, which is really problematic. That Twitter account is gone. So when I got to college, I was kind of like live posting through my journey of like trying to become like a developer. And I remember it was my freshman year, and I had some friends who were seniors, and they were all like looking for jobs and scrambling, and everybody was like, I didn't do an internship. Like, I don't know where I'm going to work. And I was like, I don't want to have to go through that. So I started looking for internships like right when I was going into kind of my sophomore year. And yeah, I got on Twitter and I was like, hey, like, I don't know how to get a software engineering internship. Like, can you help me? And a whole bunch of people who were developers like reviewed my resume and like helped me put my resume together and like told me about like all the companies to apply to and stuff. And so I had a guy from my network reach out to me, and he was like, hey, my company's hiring, like, give me a resume. I'll talk to some people. I sent him my resume, and 2 days later I got a call from Salesforce.
Oh, wow.
So I went through the interview process, like killed it. I didn't know technical interviews were like a thing. So I had to like learn everything from scratch. So I'm like, what's leak code? Like, how do you do this? Like, how do you do that? So taught myself that whole thing. So I did my first internship in the Bay, but I interned every semester after that, I think, except for like one semester. So I did 10 internships total by the time that I graduated.
Oh,
so,
my goodness.
Yeah, I was making, I think, like $56 an hour or something crazy. They put me in like a really nice apartment. Like, you could see the wharf from like my window. Like, Lombard Street was around the corner. And yeah, I was working retail before that. So I was working at a car dealership. I had two jobs. I was working at a car dealership, and I was working at Publix to pay through school. I think I came home with like $10,000 that summer, like saved. Like, I paid off a whole bunch of stuff, came home, bought a new car, still had money left over. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going back to Publix. Like,
you're like, I'm not going back to that.
Yeah, I'm not going back. Yeah. So it was a crazy jump from like $10 an hour to like 56 and being eligible for like OT, then having the apartment be fully paid for, and just like everything else. Like, it was an experience. So that was it for me.
Man, I try to tell people, like, tech is so life-changing. Like, if you go to college, the main benefit is the internships.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
You can go and you can get, just like you said, paid internships where they'll move you to a whole nother place. Everything's free.
Yeah.
You're meeting new people. You're learning new things. Like, you're experiencing new things, and you're so young.
Yeah. I lived in a different city every summer until I graduated. So I was in San Francisco, and then I was doing research in RTP. So I was in Raleigh, Durham. And then the summer after that, I was in Austin. And then the summer after that was COVID. So I still interned, but I interned remote for the same place that I would have worked at in Austin. But it was dope. I met so many cool people. So it was definitely, I think the relationships were really, really life-changing. Like, the work and the money, really dope. Yes, absolutely. But just the people that I met.
Yeah. So what type of like relationships did you build when you were out in San Francisco? Yeah.
So SF, we had a time. So my mentor, he was like a senior technical staff member, but he was like 27. So really young to be like super senior, really, really smart. And he was just kind of like, there's a lot going on. Like, you can go out and stuff, of course, and like enjoy yourself. But he was really big on like, you should go to the mixers that other companies are having. So like, Google, Facebook, like Amazon, like all these places, they would have like open houses. So like I met other people that intern at other companies. We were always like inviting each other to our company's things so that we could kind of be in the running for things for like the following summer. But I basically met like a group of just like younger, like Black people who were in technology. And they took me everywhere, like all summer. So like all summer they were like, come to this like event that my thing is having, like come to like this event with us, this, that, and the third. And it was dope. Like they were telling me like, this is how much that you should be making. Like, these are the skills, these are the things you want to learn. Like everybody was kind of like sending me courses, like study this, go do that. And just in addition, I think to having like that salary and lifestyle transparency piece, like I'm meeting people who are like made multiple M's, like they own their own businesses. I met a guy who literally like had a helicopter. He like owned a medical tech company. Like everybody was like driving super fly cars, living in really nice apartments, like just the lifestyle. And I had never seen that. So like I'm one of the first people in my family to go to college, and like just like my hometown, like I don't come from like a crazy affluent place. So I'd never been around like that, but also to see like these were not like older people. Like these people were still really, really young, like out here doing this. And they were all like, yeah, like this is tech. Like tech paid for all of this.
It's crazy. I try to tell people. They think I'm capping on the internet. I'm like, yo, like there's so many different ways to make six figures in tech. Yeah. And then there's so many different ways to make hundreds and thousands of dollars. And some people make millions of dollars in tech.
Yeah, if you take those skills and you apply them, like you have to find your niche. And that was really it. Like that, everybody was drilling that into my head all summer. They were like, as long as you stick with this, like you'll be fine.
Wow. So what type of niche did you decide to focus on?
Yeah, so I was a full stack developer for like basically the entire like last 3 years of my college career. So mainly like React, like Node.js, things like that. I kind of pivoted more towards like front end development towards like the end. And then I realized I didn't want to be a developer. Yeah. So I was kind of just like deep in the weeds in like that whole world, which is how I met Justin, which is a whole nother conversation. but so yeah, so I kind of decided on that. And then one of the last internships that I did, I had a mentor who approached me, and he was just basically just like, you're really personable, but like also really technical. And he was like, is product or like project management just something else? Like, have you thought about something that's not just engineering? Because he was like, I think that you would be really good at it, and like I think that you should try it. So my last couple internships, I did more product focused work just to see how I felt about it. And I really enjoyed it. It went over really well with like my teams. Like I got a lot of really positive feedback from my managers. I started talking to some of my friends who are older and kind of like in the product space, and just asking them like how much they were making, what kind of the work was like sort of just like day in the life. Like what does it look like to be a PM? Because like as a developer, I'm like, I go to stand up and I code, and if somebody needs me, like we sit in a huddle on Slack.
Right. Yeah.
And that's it. And then it's like demo day at the end of the week, and like that's super what I was used to. So I kind of had to get in that flow of like, what does it look like to take that technical knowledge and like translate that into more of that business lens of like communicating product knowledge and being able to like build roadmaps and understanding customer needs and things like that. And so I just went in that direction instead. So I've been a product manager for almost 3 years now. So more like mid to senior level in like my role, but that's what I do now.
That's so dope. So like, what do you do in your day-to-day as a product manager now?
Yeah.
Like, what's a typical day look like?
So it varies. So I've been a product manager on products that are like more like mature. And then I've been a product manager on like teams that are like really, really new. So like the team that I'm working on now, we're still like in the early stages of kind of figuring things out. So a lot of it is, I spend a lot of time with our engineers. So like really trying to understand, like you still, and people are going to disagree with me, and that's okay. You still need to, I think, have some sort of level of technical aptitude. I think one, because it's hard for you to figure out a reasonable timeline to do things or how to address a customer concern if you don't know whether or not you can build it, or you don't understand like how you can do that in a reasonable time frame, or if you don't understand like industry trends, right? Like this company tackled this problem using this, and we can do the same thing. So not having that technical piece, I feel like harms you if you're not really in the product space. So I spend a lot of time trying to stay technically sharp, even if that's not necessarily coding, but just like, what are other people doing? What does this look like? You know, why is my team making the decisions that they're making? So I have like that whole piece. The rest of it is just like business. I spend a lot of time with like our stakeholders. So smaller like startups, depending on what your org structure is. Like I've worked at companies where like I just talk to the CEO and the COO like directly. So it's like I'm product and the C-suite is product, and that's it. There's no buffer between us. So, you know, they just tell me what they need. I communicate that to my team. I make sure that it gets done with like our project managers. And so that's a little bit of my work day. And a lot of it is also just like research.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is just customer research, like I said, industry trends, and then just lots of like road mapping, meetings with my team, making sure that everybody understands like the vision. I think, also spicy opinion, I feel like half of being a product manager is also like really getting people to like buy into things, right? Because I'm not your boss.
Right.
So it's like, I'm not your boss, I'm not your manager. I can't really technically tell you what to do, but I have to be really intentional about my communication as to this is why it's important. This is why we should focus on this. This is why we should prioritize that, especially when I'm asking my team to pivot. Like, I know I just asked you to do this for a month, but like we actually need to do this instead. And like not being able to communicate that effectively from both a business and technical perspective, like people are not going to engage with that well. So that's kind of what my day looks like. It's a mix, but.
Okay, so can you explain the difference between a product manager and a project manager?
Yeah, so I think when you think project management, think more like facilitation. So like when we're talking products, we're thinking more like business acumen and like strategy and like that whole kind of piece. So really deep diving into what it is that like our users need. Whereas like project management is like, and I still think project managers are really important. I think project management is making sure we have all the tools to get that done. So on a lot of the teams that I worked on, our project managers, the ones that like make sure like all of our organizational stuff is like airtight. So whether we're using like Jira, Asana, Confluence, they're the ones that make sure everything's updated, kind of managing all the systems that give people the visibility that they need, and that make sure that they kind of get their work done and that it's trackable and that it's traceable. And so that's kind of like the key difference. Whereas like I as product, like I'm writing product requirement documents, like I'm doing more of like that strategy focused work, and the project managers are making sure that like, okay, once we've figured out what that looks like, right? Like these are our Q1 objectives. And then project is just like, okay, how do we make sure that we get that done? Where are we going to track all this? Where are we putting all this? You know, what metrics are we using? How are we going to measure that we sort of did that effectively? And so there's definitely some overlap, but it's two different things.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I just wanted you to break that down because it's a difference between,
especially because people say PM interchangeably and it gets really confusing.
So there's product manager, project managers, and program managers, all different.
Absolutely.
All of them are different. So like, since you switched from software over to product, you know, how did you like that transition? And, you know, do you regret switching from being more technical to less technical?
I don't. And I'm not going to lie to you. I think the transition was easy for me because I had been deep in the weeds of like some of the products it was that I had worked on. I really do think that having a technical background, even if it's just like having an engineering degree or having something that you have like a deep technical understanding of it. Like I know lots of product managers who have like backgrounds in data, and that's great, right? Because when we're analyzing customer metrics and we're doing analytics, like we need a data person. We need somebody that has that focus. And so it really depends on the product that you're working on, but you can leverage whatever it is. And I tell people this all the time, like you can leverage whatever it is that you've done technically and find a product or a service or an organization that could benefit from having somebody who can organize from that perspective. So for me, the transition was easy. Like the first thing that I worked on was like a web app. I'd been a web app developer for 3 years. And so it's like using everything that I know, like that just makes my job easier because I'm not trying to learn the product and learn all the technology behind the product and learn everything about why my team does, you know, things the way that they do things. I can just focus on like what I'm supposed to be doing.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So how's like the money compare from switching from software to product?
I love this part. I'm turning around for this. When I found out that you could make just as much money as a product manager as you can as a software engineer, I got myself out of the trenches fast, quick, and in a hurry. Like being in tech and being more technical, I feel like was a really, really great experience. And it's not an experience that I'm going to knock, but I do not want to code all day. And if y'all have something to say about it, it just is what it is. I don't. Coding was not for me. I liked coding. I didn't love it. And I think if you're going to make a career out of programming, I feel like you either have to work on a product that you really like or work with technology that you find really interesting or something like that. And like, I just did not care about software enough. Like that just was what it was. And I think it's okay to say like tech gives me the money that I need to do what it is that I need to do. I'm not necessarily passionate about technology. Like I love my teams. I love the things that I'm able to do. And like, there's little things that I find that I am passionate and I care a lot about, but like, I am not passionate about like, we gonna sit down and open VS Code. Like it's just, it's not it. I'll get you a mean product roadmap though.
Right. No, I get that for sure. I definitely agree that when it comes to being a software engineer, if you want to do it long term, you gotta be passionate about it. You have to love it because
it's continuous education as well, which I think a lot of people don't tell you. Like you don't just get into tech and then it's like the same thing that you started doing this year is going to work, 2 to 3 years from now. Like, that's just not how that works. Like, a product that you use or an engineering something that you use, like, that could just get decommissioned. And now it's like, we need to rework on this, or industry trends could change, or standards could change, compliance can change. So you're constantly having to learn to build things, and you still have to do that in product. But I'm just not interested in, I have to work 40 hours a week and then I have to go home and then I have to study and then I have to do all of these other things. And it's not to say that I don't work more than 40 hours at product, or that product doesn't require some sort of level of tenacity to keep going. It's just different. And I like the space that I'm in more, and it makes more sense for me.
Right. Yeah, that's why I switched from software engineering. I'm like, there was this bug that I was working on, and I was up at night, waking me up in the middle of the night, like thinking about the bug. And I'm like, oh, I got to try this because of GovTech, I have to go into the office to work on it.
Yeah.
And it would just drive me crazy. And I just always knew that, I use software engineering as a way to get overseas. Like, that was it for me. So I definitely took the experience that I had from being an embedded software engineer to taking those radar SIGINT skills and taking them overseas and using it doing something that I actually really enjoyed. But no, definitely not passionate about coding. And I feel like we were talking about this earlier, right?
Yeah.
It was a trend for a while. Everybody wanted to be a software engineer.
Because it sounds sexy. Anything with engineer at the end, everybody's like, oh my God, look at you, you're so smart. And I also feel like that's harmful to other people in the industry, right? Like, I think it takes lots of intelligence to really do anything technical. So I feel like people putting, like, if you're an engineer, like, you're at the top of the hierarchy and you're the smartest person is also necessarily not true, because I've worked with some engineers who are not fantastic at what it is that they do. And I've worked with product managers who are really good at what they do. And so I think everybody has to come together, like, on a well-blended team. Everybody's role is really, really critical. So it doesn't matter if you're an engineer or not, because, like, if I go on PTO for a month, my team is going to feel it, and I'm not coding anything.
Right.
So.
Dang. Okay. So that's good. So, all right. Yeah, I'm glad we talked about that, because there's just so much right now with everybody wanting to get into tech, and then at one point everybody wanted to be software engineers. Now everybody wants to do cyber. I truly feel like when people first get into tech, that's why I tell people, like, hey, get into GovTech, get your foot in the door, and then in your first 6 months to 12 months, go shadow other people, go learn and see what your other team members are doing or other people in the department are doing, so you can figure out what actually works for you and what you actually enjoy.
Absolutely. And change industries as well. I feel like you might just not like the particular type of product or service or whatever. Like, I've worked in, like, tech, like building apps. Like, I worked at a company that does, like, more of like a food delivery type of thing. I also worked in crypto for like a year. So it's
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I worked at a Web3 startup for a little minute. And so I've had everything from, like, really large, really established companies that do more legacy stuff, to newer companies that are, trying to be disruptive, to doing the whole entire crypto and, like, working in, like, fintech. And so I feel like you can test out, like, different flavors of tech. Like, you might not be an e-commerce person, you might be a fintech person. So it's also about, like, keeping your options open in that way as well, I think.
Yeah, and then also the different industries, like, they pay differently as well, too.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, in one industry, you might not get paid that well, but in another industry, you might get paid a ton of money.
Yeah, especially if that emphasis in that industry isn't technology. So I 100%.
Yeah, definitely. So I know you do a lot of things outside of work too. So I kind of want to talk about that before we go any deeper about, more tech stuff. So, like, what do you do outside of work? Like, why did you start a marketing company?
Yeah, so I would like to think of myself as, like, a multi-hyphenate. So I'm a hobby hoarder. So marketing was just kind of something that, like, unintentionally sort of fell into my lap. So I made that transition into product. Because I had a manager who was like, you have excellent people skills. Like, I think interfacing with people more is something you would want to do. And so I had done, like, some, like, product marketing adjacent stuff, but it was really, again, because I was very active on social. And I had Justin, who's the CEO and founder of Render ATL, had reached out to me, and I had done a couple of projects with him actually before we'd gotten into Render. So we did, like, Rebuild Black Business, and I was like writing their newsletter. And so I had done some things with him, like, kind of on the side first. And then he was like, yeah, like, do you want to be a director at Render? Our main thing was that tech is so connected on social, particularly on Twitter. And he was like, you're super active on social media. Like, you're really deep in the community. Like, I think you would be the perfect person to kind of like curate our content and just put some stuff together for us. So I actually became a director at Render while I was still in college.
Oh,
so
really?
yeah, I was a director at a technology conference my senior year of college. And when I graduated in like May, and then the first Render was in like September. So like my whole last year of school, I was putting together a tech conference, trying to like job hunt, and then like doing that whole thing. So I went into working into Render, and then just kind of through Render, like other people have just kind of found me.
Yeah.
So I worked with another like conference that focuses on like data science. So that was really cool. And then I've had like tons of other, like I've worked with like record labels. I've put together like just all types of events. And so right now my focus this year is mainly conferences, as you know.
Yeah. So y'all don't know, but Dania is helping with my conference. So make sure y'all come to GovTech Con. Hopefully it's going to be in November.
Yeah.
Maybe September.
TBD. But I am the official director of Vibes, and the vibes are going to be immaculate.
Yes. The vibes are going to be on point.
Absolutely.
Trust it.
So I'm working with you, and then I have another client who's an ed tech company. They do 7 figures a month. I'm their brand director, and I'll be working with their conference. So just collaborating on more like large scale experiences. I think tech has so many facets to it, and I think just in general, like I really like marketing because I think it's not even like the selling something to somebody, but I think that I really just enjoy being able to kind of like curate an experience, right?
Yeah.
Like you can change somebody's whole perspective about technology or about a business or about an organization if you give them something to connect with. And I think that that's definitely a skill. So yeah, that's like been my life for like the past 2 years. So I have like my 9 to 5, and then I have my business. But it's just been a really humbling experience to like make 6 figures at my 9 to 5 and then make 6 figures at my 5 to 9. So.
Do you remember my tweet on Twitter when I was like, you can make 6 figures at your 9 to 5 and 6 figures like with a business?
Yes.
And somebody was like, dang, you making 12 figures? I don't know if you saw that tweet. I don't know if you saw that tweet, but it was hilarious.
That's so funny. 12 figures, that's what it is.
But that's Twitter for you.
That's hilarious. Like a stack a month is $30,000 a year.
Yeah.
That
Twitter's
math is not mathing.
not at all, right?
I'm so weak.
So dang, so you got all these kind of skills, you use them all together. So with all the skills that you have, like what type of skills do people need to become a product manager?
Absolutely. I think becoming a product manager, I think the first thing is like fine-tuning your business acumen. I think that's kind of like the biggest thing is you really have to have an eye for like detail, an eye for like strategy, and being able to like, it's like a happy medium. So I tell everybody that like being a product manager is really diplomatic, right? Because you have to balance the needs of your executives against the needs of your customers, against what your engineering team is willing to do, against what the design team is willing to give you. So everything is kind of like this full circle sort of give and take. And I think mastering the art of being able to do all that is what makes you a really good product manager. But I think you can only do that if you have the business and technical acumen to lean on, right? Like going into any sort of product or service or whatever it is that you're building, I think being able to recognize like, okay, we can give our customers this for now and this will work as a really great temporary fix, or people aren't really focused on this portion of the app, so while they're not using it, let's maybe work on this, let's do this. And just being able to understand like 4 months may not be a great timeline, so it's like, what can we do in that time frame? How can we do this? How can we do that? Thinking about how other teams you've worked on have engineered problems. Like I lean so much on like, I worked on a team that did this last year or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, or like I read this in this article and this company's doing this. And so constantly being in that place of just knowing about business and knowing about trends, and knowing about tech and knowing how to talk to and engage with people. Like that's the first thing that I do when I get on teams is I'm like, what is your preferred like method of communication? I have some people, don't bother me, but like you can Slack me all day. I'm willing to huddle. I have some people who are like allergic to meetings. Like they will break out in hives. And so it's also that, right? It's like, I think if you can get your team to mesh really well, your team will give you whatever it is that you need. And I think a lot of times, especially when you put manager at the end of people's titles, like people just want to go in and like boss people around, and it doesn't work that way. You have to be really, really good at building and maintaining relationships, because at the end of the day, like that's what's going to help you and that's what's going to help your product.
Definitely. So what specifically can people do to try to build those skills if they don't have like that kind of acumen when it comes to business? Like what type of things can they do?
Absolutely.
To work on those?
I think the first thing is like definitely if you're engineering and switching into product, I think really just talking more to your product folks and like figuring out exactly what it is that they do, having like just being a part of more conversations. I think especially if you work in an org that's really invested in you being able to grow, and for a lot of organizations, like they would rather have you transition than leave, right? And so if you have an interest in product, shout out your product managers, ask them about your product, try to get into more detail, right? Instead of just like letting people assign you work, which I think a lot of engineers do, like, why are we doing this? How does what I'm doing fit into our vision, our strategy, our roadmap? What does that mean? What are our goals? Like, how can I kind of help with that? And even just being able to do some of the product focused work, like especially like I write lots of documents all day. But a lot of that is so much easier if you have an engineer that can help you when you're writing your product requirement documents. And so finding, I think, small ways to contribute to the process, I think is a really, really big one. And as far as just like social skills, I would say I've worked at orgs that do like lunch and learns where they let people come and teach things. So I would say definitely take more like speaking or person like focused engagements at your job, offer to really, really lead meetings. I think showcasing those leadership skills and showing that, hey, like when I talk, people listen is a really, really important part of being able to build those skills as well.
Yeah, so the soft skills are very important when it comes to product, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but people online, they tend to try to like downplay soft skills. They're like, when it comes to tech and stuff, soft skills don't matter. So what do you think about that?
Y'all are wrong. And I think it's a two-part problem, right? I don't even necessarily think it's that people are wrong. I think that's why you see a lot of churn, and a lot of that I think is just boils down to company culture. If you as an organization have decided that me being able to talk to you doesn't matter, what message does that send as we kind of get further down the ladder, right? Like if employees are not prioritizing communication or they're being told communication is not important, that's why you have people in meetings talking to you crazy because you said that soft skills don't matter.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And now it's per your last email, like that's why y'all are in here getting aggravated. And so I think in general, even outside of product folks, like I think even engineering, I've had great engineering leaders, and the difference between them and, higher level, execs or managers I didn't like is that they're just better at speaking to people. So I don't think it even matters what your role is. I think everybody should deeply invest in soft skills, especially for the climate that we're in. People are getting laid off left and right. And I can guarantee you that people with better communication skills have a better chance of bouncing back from that than people who don't know how to talk to people, who don't network, who don't have great conversations, right? Like with all of the talent that's in the talent pool, am I going to pick, if I have to pick between a candidate who's really technically gifted and somebody who's equally as technically gifted but communicates really well, I'm picking the better communicator. We also have to understand that tech is getting more competitive, and like just being technical is not enough.
That's a bar. That's a bar for sure. So what type of challenges have you faced throughout your career? And how did you overcome them as well?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think for me, particularly because I'm young and I feel like I don't, how do I want to phrase this? So it's really funny because I think a lot of places that I've worked, my managers and people that worked with me, like they're very aware of like my online presence.
Yeah.
So that's been super interesting. I've worked at places that are really supportive of what it is that I want to do. I also worked at a place where I would have managers like pull up tweets of mine.
I know. I see you used to go private sometimes. I'm like, why is she
And it
go
wasn't
private?
anything bad. Like I remember I was sitting in a meeting with a manager of mine, and he was like, "You need to take this job as seriously as you take the gym." I said, "Hold on." I said, "Wait a minute." And so I think especially if you're young and you're doing a lot, I think that you're always going to experience pushback in the workplace, especially if you're not working at a company that's innovative or at a company that really supports you being entrepreneurial, especially with other ventures that I have, right? Like a lot of that is like, what is your ability and your time commitment to actually sit down and like do this job? I'm usually one of the younger people on my team. So it's like, how much can you really know? You haven't been here that long. You haven't been in the space that long. Being a Black woman, I didn't go to a choice school. So it's like I'm constantly having to assert myself. But again, I think that's also a skill. Like I've really had to learn that like certain types of communication in certain spaces do not work because these people, I have to earn their respect, and earning their respect does mean like showing up and like doing my best. Like I can't coast.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think that's a big part of the conversation as well, is that if you're entering a room and people don't want you to be there, when you get in the room, you can't mess up. Because it's bigger than just me, right? It's who are you going to hire and pick after me based on my decisions and what I've done and my impact on this organization. So I think my biggest challenge is like realizing that it's that, right? Like it's, yes, I'm good at my job, and yes, I'm good at what it is that I do, but it's also setting the stage so that other people can come in, and I've created a space for them to grow and to have the same opportunity as me. So That's been challenging, but I think it's worth it. Like, I think, and I mean, I think the work that you do is really similar as well, right? It's how do we carve out a path for people to be able to access what we've accessed.
Right.
And that takes a lot of work.
Yeah. That's literally why I started all of this, right?
Yeah.
Because so many people, they were like, oh, you're just a unicorn. There's nobody else doing what you're doing. You're the only person. I'm like, no. There's other people I literally know. There's a whole community of people. I know so many Black people who are doing very well in tech, doing very well, right? So I was like, I just want to share this so everybody can share their stories and people can see all these different avenues that are available to them.
Yeah, because I'll definitely say, like, that was the biggest thing for me. Like, if I had not gone to San Francisco that summer and I hadn't seen that, I don't know if my career would be set up the same way because I didn't have that exposure. I didn't know that existed. I didn't know that there was a community. Like I said, I started that summer. I didn't even have a LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was. I left that summer with over 500 connections. Every single Black person I could find, I was like, hey, we're friends now. Like, all sorts of group meets and group chats. I have people that I've been friends with for years from that first summer. Like, we do little reunions from old internships and stuff that I've been in. I got laid off twice during the layoffs last year, and I was able to bounce back through people that I met in the Bay that first summer, like years ago. And so, like, those relationships really, really matter. But I'm also like, seeing is believing. And so I think having people to where they're openly talking about, this is what I do, this is how much I make, this is the lifestyle that it's given me, is super important. Like, you don't know if you don't know.
Right, exactly. And that's what everything is about for me, is about exposure. So if people aren't exposed to it, you have no idea. Like, until I started talking about overseas government contracting, and I posted that one check that was like $15,000, that's when people were like, oh, like, you're not just like tweeting, like, this is real.
Yeah,
like,
and it's funny.
Real.
I found you because you were posting that stuff, and it was funny because I had reached out. I think I don't remember what it was that you posted. I remember following you and then finding out that there was a ton of people that followed me that were like, yeah, I'm an overseas government contractor. Yes. And I was like, why didn't y'all say anything?
Because like people, they just don't talk about it, right? Like, I'm telling you, like, that overseas world, it's like, it's a very small community, and it's just something that, like, you got it real good. Everybody's chilling. We live in life. We like, hey, we're just in our bubble.
And I think it's different because, like, especially like tech, and like, because like, I feel like different tech stacks have their own little communities, and they're so vocal online. So I'm like, I know everybody that does every different type of software engineering that's under the sun. But like, once you start segueing into different things, right? Like you said, like GovTech, cyber, all these other things that are available. I'm like, I don't know what y'all are doing over there.
Like, exactly. So with you having so many things going on, like, what motivates you to keep going to the gym and keep flexing on everybody on Twitter?
I think for me, the biggest thing that I've learned the past couple of years is like, mental fortitude will get you places that other things will not. And so when I started working out with my trainer, I was actually really anxious about going to the gym. But like, when I first started working out, I was going at 5 o'clock in the morning. I had no reason to go at 5 o'clock in the morning. My team was based on like the West Coast. Like, my job, like, my day didn't even start till like 11, 12 o'clock. But I woke up and I got up early because I was like, you hate giving up early. But I was like, you could reprogram your brain to like something and make something a part of your schedule. Like, you could commit to it. So like, working out for me has largely been a journey of like, every single day I go to the gym and I do something hard and I do something that I haven't done before, or, I add a little bit more weight, but like, that translates to how like I do everything. And so like, I'm a lot stronger and a lot tougher than I thought I was going to be in like the past 2 years of working out. But like, it's just made me bolder in every aspect of life. And like, it's super funny because I have a friend that I work out with, and it's like, I'll be pitching myself to clients or talking about contracts, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. I don't think they're going to pick me. And she's like, you just picked up 300 pounds yesterday. And you said, over here to tell me that you're nervous. Right. And so it's like, I feel like, when you can, it's bigger than just the gym, which sounds really corny, but like, it really is. And I feel like everybody needs that thing. Like, I feel like you have to find time outside of your work or outside whatever it is that you do to just really challenge yourself, push yourself mentally, push yourself physically, like, find something that gets you in that space, because you can lean on that for everything else.
Yeah, that's amazing. I just see you and you're like, oh yeah, I just PR'd. Like, you're like, I haven't been in the gym in like 6 weeks and I just hit a PR. I'm like, this girl, she's always lifted. Always in the gym.
And it throws me off. Like, when I don't work out, I feel like I'm like, yo, my life is a shambles.
Yeah. No, I recently started going to another gym. I'm not going to put it out there which one it is, because y'all just so nosy. But I recently started going to another gym. And, right, you see what happened with the Lifetime. My videographer back there laughing. But it's like, I go to Lifetime, right? I made that video. And now it's like I don't go there as much as I used to, but now whenever I do go, they're like, oh my God, I signed up because of you. I've been looking for you. I'm like, no, you've been looking for me?
I started going to private gyms for that reason, because like, I would be, and it's also like, now is not the time.
Right.
So I'd be in the middle of a workout and people be like, oh, you're a full stack developer from Twitter. Like, tell me about da-da-da. And I'm like, babe, if I drop this weight, it's over. Like,
Right, yeah, people asking for consultations in the gym. I'm like, oh,
yeah, no.
Gotta go somewhere else. Yeah, so, but I love Lifetime, but yeah, so I started going to another gym, and now, like, I go consistently at the same time. Yeah. And it's just like, you just gotta put it into your schedule, because I had fell off for a minute because I had a surgery.
Yeah.
Like, you remember, I had my surgery, so I wasn't even able to go to the gym for like, really like 8 months almost. Yeah. So, you know, I had to just get back into it, but putting the gym into your routine, it makes you more disciplined, makes you more focused. For me, if I do something like really, really hard in the morning, the rest of the day
it's super easy.
It's really easy.
It's like, you've been killing it since 6 a.m.
Right,
Like,
exactly. I'm like, dang, I got up early, I got to the gym. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
and it feels so accomplished. I'm like, I came home, had me a nice little healthy meal. Like, I just feel like I really did something.
Yeah.
The rest of the day could absolutely not go as planned, but I'm like, the workout was real nice. You know what I'm saying? Like, we did something.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So what's one piece of advice that you can give people who want to be in your position and where you are today?
Be bolder. I think that's like the biggest thing that I've learned is like like I feel like everybody says is like the worst thing that people can tell you no and yes, but also those same people will tell you yes if you come back in time. And I think that's like the biggest thing. There's so many opportunities that I feel like I got teed up for like too early, but I think that was like just me getting that exposure, right? Like, okay, you can do this. Okay, you can do this. Okay, you do that. And like, it's just the never taking no for an answer, because even now with like my clients, like I would never think that my business, because like I don't have an Instagram, I don't market anything about my business. I'm not on TikTok. Like nobody even really knows that I run a marketing business. So to like run a marketing business and I'm running with the people that I'm running with and the amount of money that it is that I'm able to make through my business, and all of that was just me being bolder. I was like, one person told me yes, somebody else will tell me yes. Like just being confident in your ability. People that told me no were like, hey, you know, like I don't have the experience, or we'd like to work within, you know, an agency, or we just need more whatever, da da da. I come back 6 months later and I'm like, okay, well, all these other people told me yes and you saw how well they did. So like, what's up?
Ooh.
And so it's like those no's are, you know, also just turning into yeses. But I think it's be bolder. And it's just like, it's always like, also set a goal 2 times higher. Like I think anytime you tell yourself like, I want to do this, like double it. I want to make this, like double it. Like I want to see these places, like double it. And so you should never settle for what you think is your best, because you're telling yourself that's all that you could do.
You just dropping bars after bars. Like, oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah, I like that. I like double everything, triple everything. You have to aim higher.
Oh, absolutely.
Because like you really don't know what your limit is until you actually like really try to achieve it. Because we think like whatever we're doing is like so big, but then once you get exposed to what's really possible, you're like, dang, I was able to actually do all of this in 1 year. Like I didn't think that would be possible for me. So
it's like, what if I doubled down and got even more serious like this year? And I think that's another thing too, is like, don't be afraid to like take yourself really serious. I see that a lot with like, even when it comes to content creation. I just bought a camera. But like, even when it comes to like content creation or growing a business or doing something, I feel like everybody's scared of like asserting themselves in that way, because they're scared of what other people are going to think or what other people are going to have to say about them. Like, who does she think she is, like pulling her camera out or trying to do this or trying to do this or trying to do that. So like, don't limit yourself based on other people's opinions either. Like, and that's my biggest thing. Like if I had to give another piece of advice, is like, I don't listen to anybody who's not in a position that I want to be in.
Facts.
So it's like, if I would not trade places with you, I do not need to be listening to you. And that just is what it is. And I can guarantee you, anybody who has something negative to say to you is not somebody you would want to be in the first place.
We can just end the episode right there. No, that's nothing but facts, for real. Oh my goodness. So I'm so glad that you came out, Dania.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you, appreciate everything you do. And I'm excited for everything that we do this year with GovTech Con, and what you're doing with Render and all the other companies you work with, and everything you're doing professionally. So where can people find you at? Like your LinkedIn, IG, Twitter, you know, we crazy on there.
I am at Not Dani Lu, so NOTDANILU on TikTok. But I'm mainly on Twitter. So Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can find me under all of those 3 handles. And yeah, like reach out to me, tweet me. It's the easiest way. But follow me on Instagram too, because we're working on that.
So that wraps up another episode of Day in My Tech Life. My name is Simone B, also known as Bees. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the notification bell. We'll see you on the next one.